Prime Minister demolishes Marcelle's race card, exposes PNM's decades-long strategy of division. A non-functional brain, Persad responds to baseless racism accusations with facts, not fear. By Anna Ramdas and enhanced by WZYE-TV. Prime Minister Kamla Persad delivered a withering response yesterday to opposition MP Karim Marcelle's incendiary claims that her government hates Afro-Trinidadians, dismissing his comments as coming from what she described as a non-functional brain. The exchange began Thursday when Marcelle, speaking at a public meeting, called the Prime Minister an unfit leader and accused the government of racism and harboring hatred toward Afro-Trinidadians, serious allegations that demand serious scrutiny, not political theater. The Prime Minister's response: let the cabinet speak for itself. Rather than engaging in a shouting match, Persad took the high road while delivering a devastating rebuttal. I don't think it's fair or kind for me to argue with someone who appears to be suffering from a non-functional brain, she said, a pointed observation about the quality of discourse coming from certain opposition benches. When pressed on Marcelle's specific claim that the government hates Black people, the Prime Minister didn't offer platitudes or defensive rhetoric. Instead, she pointed to undeniable facts. That question is best answered by Gillian John Jeremy, Wayne Sturge, Roger Alexander, Michelle Benjamin, Anil Roberts, David Naked, etc. This is not a list of token appointments. This is the actual composition of her cabinet, Afro-Trinidadian ministers holding some of the most powerful and consequential positions in government: Works and Infrastructure, the Attorney General's Office, National Security, held by 2 ministers, and other critical portfolios. The math doesn't lie. If the UNC government hates Black people, as Marcelle claims, why would the Prime Minister entrust Afro-Trinidadian leaders with national security, the legal framework of the country, and major infrastructure development? The accusation collapses under the weight of simple, observable reality. Calling out the PNM's race grifting strategy, the Prime Minister didn't stop at defending her cabinet's composition. She went further, naming the strategy for what it is. This is nothing new with the PNM. They've been campaigning with race grifting for decades. It's gotten worse and more overt under this penny-led PN. Race grifting is a powerful and precise term. It describes a political strategy where racial grievance is manufactured and exploited, not to address genuine inequality, but to generate political support and distract from a party's failures in governance. This isn't a new observation. The PNM has long relied on racial framing as a political tool, particularly when facing scrutiny over its governance record. Under opposition leader Penelope Beckles, the Prime Minister suggests this strategy has become even more overt, a desperate tactic from a party struggling to define itself in opposition after losing power. Feigning victim status: the Syrian-Lebanese community controversy. The interview also addressed a separate, but related controversy: comments by Attorney General John Jeremy regarding the Syrian-Lebanese community, which had drawn concern from some community members. Here, the Prime Minister was equally direct, quoting renowned American economist Thomas Sowell. When people get used to preferential treatment, equal treatment seems like discrimination. This quote cuts to the heart of the matter. Persad made clear that no one is being targeted based on ethnicity or community membership. No one is being misled by the histrionics and attempts to feign victim status. Members of the Syrian/Lebanese community fully well know that some of their members are involved in criminal behavior. It's the same for the Indian, African, Chinese, and all other groups. The law is the same for everyone. This is perhaps the most important statement in the entire exchange. The law is the same for everyone. Not preferential treatment based on ethnicity. Not special protections for certain communities. Equal application of law regardless of background. The Prime Minister reinforced that law-abiding citizens, including law-abiding members of the Syrian/Lebanese community, have nothing to fear. The only people who should be concerned are those who engage in criminal behavior, who will face the same consequences as any other person who breaks the law. She also noted that the UNC has members from the Syrian-Lebanese community, and she personally has friends within it. None of them have expressed any concerns to me because none of them are engaged in criminal behavior. This is a crucial point. Concern about law enforcement only arises among those whose activities might attract law enforcement attention. On U.S. visa decisions, the U.S. has sophisticated intelligence capabilities. The Prime Minister also addressed speculation about her government's alleged involvement in U.S. visa decisions, firmly stating that such matters fall within the remit of the United States and that Trinidad and Tobago's government has no involvement. Her response to those who might believe otherwise was characteristically blunt. However, if some people gain comfort from worry by telling themselves that the TT government is involved, so be it, it won't change a thing. The U.S. has sophisticated intelligence capabilities and they make decisions based on their interests. She then delivered what may be the sharpest line of the entire exchange, taking aim at media outlets that have spent months pressuring the U.S. government on issues like drug interdiction operations. Maybe having a mouthpiece media house doing the PNM's dirty work to harass the U.S. government about radars, blowing up drug boats, drug trafficking, and U.S. military troop numbers on a daily basis was a dumb idea. This is a pointed reminder that actions have consequences. If certain media outlets have spent months publicly questioning U.S. military operations, drug interdiction efforts, and troop deployments in the region, essentially doing opposition political work disguised as journalism, it would be naive to think the U.S. government hasn't taken notice. The Prime Minister is suggesting that some of the current anxieties within certain communities may be self-inflicted, the result of media campaigns that drew unwanted attention rather than any action by the Trinidad and Tobago government. WZY TV Analysis, a masterclass in political communication. What we witnessed yesterday was a Prime Minister operating with the confidence and clarity that comes from having facts on her side. Consider the contrast in approaches. Marcelle made sweeping, inflammatory accusations, racism, hatred of Afro-Trinidadians, an unfit leader, the kind of rhetoric designed to generate headlines and stir emotional reactions without requiring any actual evidence. The Prime Minister's response required no such theatrics. She simply pointed to her cabinet. Gillian John Jeremy, Wayne Sturge, Roger Alexander, Michelle Benjamin, Anil Roberts, David Naked. These aren't names she had to memorize for a press conference. These are the actual people running critical ministries in her government, and they happen to represent the diversity of Trinidad and Tobago. This is what accountability looks like. When accused of racism, you don't need to give a passionate speech about your personal feelings. You point to your record, your appointments, your governance, and let the facts speak. The race grifting framework deserves serious attention. The Prime Minister's characterization of PNM strategy as race grifting is worth examining closely. For decades, when the PNM has faced criticism over governance failures, crime, economic mismanagement, corruption scandals, a familiar pattern emerges: accusations of racial bias against critics, regardless of the critics' own ethnic background or the substance of their concerns. This pattern serves a specific political function. It transforms legitimate policy criticism into accusations of bigotry, making it socially costly for people to raise concerns about governance. If you criticize PNM policy, you risk being labeled racist, regardless of whether race has anything to do with your critique. Under the UNC government, with its demonstrably diverse cabinet across Indo-Trinidadian, Afro-Trinidadian, and other communities, this strategy becomes increasingly difficult to sustain. When Marcelle accuses a government that includes Gillian John Jeremy, and Wayne Sturge of hating Afro-Trinidadians, the accusation simply doesn't match observable reality. The Thomas Sowell quote resonates beyond one community. The Prime Minister's use of Sowell's observation, "When people get used to preferential treatment, equal treatment seems like discrimination," extends far beyond the Syrian-Lebanese community controversy. It speaks to a broader principle of governance. Equal application of law represents fairness, even when it feels different from previous arrangements that may have involved selective enforcement or preferential treatment for certain groups. This principle, equal treatment under law regardless of community, ethnicity, or connections, is precisely what citizens should want from their government. The alternative, a system where certain communities receive preferential treatment or selective law enforcement, is the actual injustice, even if it's the status quo people have grown accustomed to. A government confident in its record. What stands out most in this exchange is the Prime Minister's confidence. She's not defensive. She's not apologetic. She's not engaging in lengthy explanations or justifications. She's stating facts, naming strategies for what they are, and moving forward. This confidence comes from results. Murders down 42%, serious crimes down 30%, a cabinet that genuinely reflects Trinidad and Tobago's diversity, and a government delivering on campaign promises across multiple sectors. When you have a record like this, baseless accusations of racism simply don't land. They bounce off the observable reality of who's running the country and what they're accomplishing. The bottom line: Karim Marcelle's accusations represent exactly the kind of politics Trinidad and Tobago needs to move beyond. Inflammatory rhetoric divorced from facts, designed to generate emotional reactions rather than substantive debate. The Prime Minister's response represents the alternative: calm, fact-based, and ultimately more persuasive precisely because it doesn't need to shout to be heard. For citizens tired of race-based political attacks that ignore actual governance, yesterday's exchange offered a clear demonstration of the difference between political theater and political leadership. WZYE TV. Caribbean News. No filter. No fear.